for Southern Africa, the Sub-Regional Office for Southern Africa, we've had, which we have reported actually in the APPRM this time, 2 key results. And they're really speaking to the area of our specialization, which is inclusive industrialization. And I'll speak to 2. One, of course, is a lot of the work that we've done in terms of the AFCFTA, supporting member countries develop their national strategies for implementing the FCFTA. And in this regard, for the first half of this year, we had the opportunity to support 3 countries, and these were Eswatini, Mozambique, but also Namibia. Namibia wasn't particularly FCFTA, but it is their national trade policy. But I want to speak a lot more to the 2, which is Eswatini and Mozambique, which was fascinating. First of all, Mozambique was one of our really late comers to ratify the AFCFTA. But because of a lot of the work that we've done as ECA, in terms of having the conversations around FCFTA, a lot of the national sensitization workshops that we've had a success in a couple of days ago that they actually ratified. But a lot of the engagements that we had, the latest being in March of this year, I think that it has accrued and also helped for the country to move forward and make sure that they're clear around the ECA issues. The other one is Eswatini, which we had an amazing engagement at various levels, and I had the opportunity actually to meet the Prime Minister. We presented the draft strategy that we supported as ECA, the country, to develop, and we had to present it to Cabinet, but also Parliament, as well as private sector and other stakeholders. So really, I think, if you look at that, the level of engagement, and then for Eswatini, looking at the country which has about 2 million people, one of the questions that was asked was, why are we even bothering to have this FCFTA implementation? And our engagement plus the conversation that we had helped the country see that they actually can be more outward facing, that their market shouldn't just be the 2 million people that they have as Eswatini, but they can also look within the region and therefore accelerating interregional trade. So a lot of successes there. And another one that I also want to speak to, which is in the form of Mozambique, it's same like Mozambique is Botswana. Botswana, we started engaging them on FCFTA implementation like from about 3 years ago, 2-3 years ago. Although they haven't developed a national strategy yet, but what is good is because of all, again, the awareness raising that we've had, a lot of the policy discussions that we've had, they've also, as a country, recently ratified. So 2 wins from the sub-region for me, the 2 countries that have not only developed their strategies now, but they've actually ratified, and these are the latecomers of Botswana and Mozambique. The other success that we've had for the first half of the year has also been a lot of our work on supporting private sector development. And we use the FCFTA as an anchor, or trade as an anchor, but what we're doing is working a lot more with small and medium type enterprises that they're actually AFCFTA ready. And what we've done, of course, linking it to just also looking at the challenges and opportunities for a lot of the MSMEs in the region. So we did studies in all our countries, all the 11 countries of the sub-region, with a few case studies. And I think that we had a subset of about 5 countries. We had surveys in all of the countries. And again, just bringing all the issues that were coming up in terms of what are the challenges in MSME development, what are the opportunities, what have we learned, especially from COVID-19, but also the Russia and Ukraine crisis. And what has been and we had quite a big regional event last month in Cape Town, where we brought a lot of MSMEs, but we also brought a lot of innovations, institutions that work on a lot of innovations, but also digital trade and so on. And that's also where we launched our online platform that we developed together with the SADC Business Council, and it is actually hosted by the SADC Business Council. So a win, and a lot of the players or stakeholders that we had, MSMEs that were part of this discussion, we're quite excited about that. But what they've also done, which then sets us into what should we be focusing on going into the last half of the year, was challenges to say, number one, can we have a regional competitive strategy for MSME development? And that's already something that we've had a discussion with the SADC Secretariat, but also the COMESA Secretariat, in terms of how do we then do this collaboratively, because we're actually working in a sub-region. So that's number one. Number two, there really a really pressing issue in terms of the ask from MSMEs, but also everybody who's involved in terms of capacity building, and capacity very specific and practical issues in terms of, okay, what kind of products do we develop? How do we brand those products? How do we market those products? And how do we use e-commerce to make sure that we're able to sell our products across the sub-region? So that for me was not only an ask, but basically saying, this is an area that we need to be focusing on and concentrating on as an office. And that's what we'll be doing and moving into more strongly going into the last half of the year. Another aspect as well that we will continue to engage on AFCFTA, because it is a critical issue. Our upcoming intergovernmental committee for experts meeting that we're going to have this year is going to be on AFCFTA, but really building on the REC AFCFTAs. So we're partnering with SADC, with the SADC Secretariat, but also COMESA Secretariat, because I think there's a conversation that needs to happen, which hadn't happened before, or is not happening at the pace that we would want, which is, how do we make sure that, yes, we have the AFCFTA, but recognizing the fact that SADC or COMESA FTAs are actually building blocks, and therefore, which takes precedence when countries are trading in these blocks and so on. An important conversation, and I think an elephant in the room that we thought would be good to discuss. So we'll be taking that conversation a little further, and at some point we might learn from what West Africa have done, which they came up with a sub-regional or a regional AFCFTA strategy. It might be something that we have to look at in SADC as well. So those two elements, and then finally, of course, our focus in terms of the sub-region, which is inclusive industrialization. We actually have received a lot of requests from countries in the region to support them in reviewing their industrialization policies. One of the challenges that we've had, which of course is a risk, is that we don't have the right amount of resources to respond to this, but we're also looking into what are the opportunities, where can we tap into, and therefore making sure that at least for the 4 or 5 countries that have requested for this support, we can support them, because it's critically important for us to do that, to ensure that there's alignment in terms of national industrialization policies to the SADC and even COMESA industrialization policies, because I think that's what will move the region to be able to really achieve, the type of, whether it's to create the jobs that we need, but also make sure that we are reducing poverty and inequality in the region, which is quite of a key challenge for the sub-region. So in a nutshell, again, in summary, I think continuing our work in private sector development, MSME development, but more in the practical sense and implementation, continuing the work on AFCFTA, but bringing it, upscaling it to the sub-region, as well as then really focusing on changing the policy environment that responds to some of the regional policies and strategies in this regard.